Rollover crashes account for almost a third of all fatalities on the road today, yet only 3% of the crashes, so they're a major public health issue. The United States Department of Transportation has tasked the University of Virginia with investigating rollover crashes and investigating the injuries to rollover-involved occupants in an effort to develop a dynamic crash test standard that would be used to evaluate vehicles for crashworthiness in the future. The test that we're working on at UVA revolves around this system here, the Dynamic Rollover Test System, or DROTS. The way this works is we mount a vehicle on a spit, because typically rollovers occur on the road where the vehicle is translating over the ground as well as rotating. In this case, we're going to simulate that translational motion over the ground with a moving road surface, which I'm standing on right now. And we're going to keep the vehicle fixed at a certain point in the laboratory and spin it on a spit at that point. The reason that we do that is that it allows us to run the test here inside of our building, actually, as opposed to doing it out on the road somewhere. What we do is we mount the vehicle on the spit with the front attached right in here, the rear of the vehicle attached right in here. The road surface starts at the impact end of the road, and the road surface accelerates up to a test velocity as it translates down here. During that acceleration time, we actually rotate the vehicle up to a test rotation rate or rotation speed, as well as the specified rotation angle. And at just the right time, we're going to release the vehicle, literally dropping it down, allowing it to fall under gravity while spinning, so that it hits the road at exactly the perfect instant. Then it will roll across the road here, and as the road passes under the vehicle at the end, we'll actually stop the test by braking the vehicle and not allowing it to hit the floor, and actually stop the rotation afterward. We're doing these tests with occupant models, with crash dummies, trying to understand how injury is occurring and how we can actually develop vehicles or suggest manufacturing changes to vehicles that would actually make cars safer for occupants involved in rollovers.
During our testing, we actually take real vehicles and watch what happens to the occupant inside it. This is a victim, basically, of a rollover crash in our test bay in there, the Dynamic Rollover Test System. You can see by the scrapes on the roof here that we are simulating as close as possible the actual forces and events that occur during a rollover collision. Your car is both rolling during a rollover test as well as sliding along the road. So you'll get some scraping as well as downward forces. In the past, they tested vehicles by just simply dropping them on the roof. During our test, we've done the research to determine the most dangerous, most likely event to cause death and simulate those exact conditions inside our building. We take this vehicle, lift it up, start it spinning, move a roadbed underneath it, and drop the car onto that moving roadbed, all in a nice controlled environment. So we aren't subject to the weather conditions and stuff like that. We can then mount video cameras inside the car and record what's actually happening to the victim inside the car. Right now I'm standing in the way of our CISA Seattle Safety Sled. Our primary focus of research is not what happens to a vehicle in a collision, but what happens to the occupant. Therefore, this test is designed to see what happens to an occupant in a collision. The sled works backwards from what you normally expect, in that the sled is normally started at the beginning of the track here. It has the brakes underneath the sled itself, which are clamped by this braking system here. We pressurize a cylinder to my right with high pressure air, and at the prescribed time, given the amount of pressure and the mass of the vehicle itself, we release the brakes to simulate the same kind of pulse, immediate action that occurs in a crash. This is the Hybrid 3 test crash dummy. He's designed to simulate the 50th percentile, or the average male in America. He's 185 pounds, 5 foot 8 inches tall. All the weight is distributed as close as possible to match an actual human. He's a lot heavier than he seems. We typically use a hoist to lift him and move him about. You can see that he's a lot stiffer than your average person is. He can't really go swimming or anything like that. so he isn't as close to a human subject as we would like. We therefore run several tests with either the Hybrid 3 dummy or a newer style called Thor for a thoracic research, and compare that to actual human subjects, post-mortem subjects who are cadavers. And therefore we can get actual, more simulated responses of the human, compare that to the dummy, and give feedback to the engineers who designed the dummies to make them better subjects.
My name is Mark Socher. I work here at the Center for Applied Biomechanics. I'm both an emergency physician and a biomechanical engineer. I'm also the present medical director here at the Center for Applied Biomechanics. What we do here from a medical perspective at the Center for Biomechanics is we work with a lot of cadaveric material or cadavers. We call them post-mortem human subjects. The PMHSs help us develop guys like this. This is the Hybrid 3 Anthropomorphic Test Device, or ATD, or what you know as a crash test dummy. And in order to develop this crash test dummy, we had to find out the properties of the human body, basically to trauma, to blunt force trauma. And in doing that, we need to use bone, specifically human bone, and that's why we use the PMHSs to develop the tolerances to the forces that the body sees in a car crash or some type of military event or any kind of blunt force trauma. There's also a more advanced anthropomorphic test device, or ATD, coming out, which is called the Thor, Thor, and we actually developed the lower leg for that device, which will come out in the near future.
Read more about the University of Virginia School of Engineering in the spring 2012 issue of Engineering Unbound.